Welcome to Hustle and Flow Show episode 8. Today's video will be titled How to Protect Your Energy, and it's quite an important topic basically because everywhere you go you'll realize whether it's financial, emotional, mental, spiritual, there's always a tax that is ever present, and it's something that skims your energy when you're going in and out of places. And it's death by 1,000 cuts. All of these little cuts, they end up with you less able to focus and put intention into the vision of a life that you want to create. And I think it's important to talk about this because everywhere you go has some sort of an agenda. Everywhere you go has some sort of a reason as to why they're trying to get close to you, why they want you there. People are just looking to leech off you. Energy systems are looking to leech off you. And you have to protect your energy at all costs. And part of being a sovereign man or being a sovereign woman or a person and standing on your own 2 feet is understanding where you are seeking or where you are losing energy. You're losing energy from various different aspects and how to overcome these areas. The first part of this video is understanding your energy. I just want to read out a definition of energy, as a lot of people have different versions of it depending on who you go and communicate with. And the version that they put focus or attention into is different depending on what their mind state is, what they're looking at from life. The way that their perceptual filters are working is how they're gonna receive and perceive you. And I just want to read out the Oxford Dictionary definition of energy so that we can actually understand what we're talking about here. According to the Oxford definition, right? Personal energy refers to the capacity for activity, vigor, and vitality within an individual, encompassing physical, mental, and emotional aspects. It's to do with activity that takes place in a person, the capacity for activity, to what extent are you able, to what volume are you able to take action, whether that's physically, or for example, let's say you're running and you're fat and you're out of shape and you've never run before, you can't even run 100 meters and you'd probably have a risk of some sort of heart disease or something, some sort of an issue, right? Whereas if you run all the time, running's no big deal, it's just you go and bang the runner and you carry on with your day. And those two explanations show different capacities for the output and the extent of which you can actually express energy through a physical medium. But these might also take place in the mental capacity in terms of how you're able to think, or an emotional capacity for how much you're able to perceive in terms of different kinds of a full range of emotions or a spectrum of emotions. You've got the physical aspect, the mental aspect, the emotional aspect. There is also a spiritual aspect to it as well. However, the spiritual aspect is often not metricized or measured. It's not something you can put a metric on or go and prove. It's often a personal relationship that person has with this kind of energy. Types of energy according to science. So the different types of energy. So we've got kinetic energy, which is the energy produced by moving objects. For example, when the sea waves are moving and they're washing over each other or they're bashing up against the shore, that is a potential of kinetic energy being expressed through the movement of the waves. It's basically kinetic to do with movement. When you have moving parts, moving objects moving through natural forces, through the air, through the water, that's a natural version of expression of energy. And kinetic energy is probably one that is more natural in its concept or context. Physical energy, so the energy that you have in your body would be the physical energy, and obviously depending on how you perceive it, some people get energy from boatloads of caffeine and nicotine and it does buzz you up, but then it has a price to it. And there's other stimulants people take and they temporarily you get supercharged, and then afterwards you've got to pay a price for running around at twice the normal pace. And then you might also have emotional energy. Sometimes if you really strongly feel motivated to do something has really pissed you off, or something has really inspired you, you see someone, you think, wow, that person is incredible, I would like to be like that. And that would be the emotional aspect to your production of energy in that capacity. Mental energies as well. So this is a more subtle version, I think, talk about mental energies, but I think mental energies are to do with vibes that you get. Vibes when you go into a certain place and it might be completely spotless, clean, but you're getting weird vibes from the people that live there. Or you walk into another house and it's messy, but you feel warmth. Or you walk into another space and it's fake, it feels fake, something doesn't feel right. I think the mental energy aspect of more vibes, stuff that you're picking up on, maybe you're not conscious of these things and you're picking up from them in the environment in and around you. It's very important to maintain balance between the physical, mental, spiritual and kinetic energies and different kinds of energies in your body. So you don't want to put too much effort into just training all the time and then not be doing any reading, or you don't want to have fantastic mathematical abilities or mental skills and you can't communicate or interact with women or other men. You want to create a well-rounded, all-rounded personality and try and have some sort of balance as much as you can. You will always have deficits in certain areas because that's just the way your composite is, the way that your system is built. But in terms of the energy types, it's important to try to balance these so you've got some sort of balance between the different energies. You're not over-saturated in one area, you're not underdeveloped in another area. You want to have a nice balanced approach to it. The second part of this video is called identifying energy drains. I think this is very important as well, because if you're trying to create something lasting and you're putting a lot of time and energy and effort into it, you want to make sure that you're not losing any efficiency through the mere action of the forces in and around your actions or whatever you're trying to do. The Oxford definition for external factors here. The Oxford definition for external factors here is external factors refer to elements originating from the environment or outside the individual that may influence or affect personal energy levels. It's just things in and around you. So these are things from the outside that have an effect on the inside. And it's important to know that these are forces that are being acted upon the person or the system. These are things from the outside acting on you, and everything is in flux, everything is in a state of movement. But when you're conscious of these things, when you're fully able to perceive these things, it becomes very obvious to you immediately who's bringing your energy up and who's bringing your energy down. And that's when we're going to go into the next part of the video, which is also very, very important. Let's have a look at the next part, right? Common external elements. If you go outside and it's cold, right, and they've done studies on this, if you meet a new person and you go out for a coffee with them, the mere fact that you're going to have a warm drink with that person makes them feel warmer towards you in terms of they like you more. Whereas if you go and have an ice cold Coke or lemonade or Fanta or something, they're less warm towards you. Why is it that people say, let's catch up for a coffee? They message you on LinkedIn or other places, come on, let's go and meet up for a coffee. We'll go and have a coffee, we'll have something to eat. And they want to perceive, or they want to create a sense of warmth. That's an example of an external factor, whereas like temperature on the outside is cold. You have two people interacting, and if they go for a coffee together, they feel warmer in the relationship that they perceive or remember is warmer towards one another. And so these are little subtle nudges that you must pay attention to, especially when trying to. Next part of this video is about internal factors. You've got the external, which is the outside, and then you've got the internal, which is the inside part. And these two things are in a constant state of interaction. And it's like an outer game and the inner game. How I see myself and how the world sees me. The inner game is how I see myself, outer game is how the world sees me. And these two things operate, and often the outside is just a reflection of the inside. When your internal values change, your internal self-esteem, confidence levels change, the external environment has to change. But similarly, acquiring certain things in the physical environment allows you to basically push on and change the internals as well. It's not just the outside, it's the inside that changes. But what I'm saying is that these two things are constantly overlapping. They don't just sit like completely mutually exclusive, or what's the word, completely independent of one another. And they don't, and so it's important to say that, remember that the inside and the outside are interlinked. So when we're talking about internal factors, I just want to read out the internal factors definition. What we've got here is internal factors pertain to personal habits, thoughts and emotions that may contribute to depletion of one's energy, right? You must recognize and address these internal factors for improved energy management. Personal habits is something that you have personal control over. You've got direct ownership, accountability and responsibility for your habits on a daily basis. I know that they're difficult when you start. After a while, it becomes a routine. You don't even think about it. It just happens on autopilot. But initially, when you try and set the habit up, it's quite difficult because you have to snap out of unconsciousness to install a new pattern. Whereas the previous pattern was not serving you, the new pattern might take you to places that you never dreamt of. So real knuckle down on the patterns and the habits element. It's easy to cut shapes in the matrix because at the end of the day, you've got the habits on lock and the outcomes are just, as long as the habits are there, eventually you will get to the destination, the goals that you want. The difficult part is sticking to it and all the distractions in and around. Let's go out for a drink, let's go raving, let's go partying, come on, let's do this, let's do that. If you can cut the distractions out and stay focused on your path, from A to B, like Mayweather says, a direct straight line, there's the shortest distance between 2 points, there's a straight line. You know, if you're zigzagging all over the shop, you're never gonna get there. But if you're just straight with it, you'll get there. You might not get there as quick as you want to, but it'll be a shorter path in terms of the actual distance, right? Sometimes on the side tangents or the detours, there are lessons and things that you must learn. But similarly, on the whole, if you just say, right, I'm currently here, I need to get to here, I'm gonna go like this, it's a lot shorter than saying, right, I'm currently here, I wanna go to here, I'm gonna do this, you know, and then end up, and this is distraction, 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 end goal, if you even get there, right? Whereas if you just stay, right, start point, focused action, habits, patterns, intention, action, blah, 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 and you get to the end point where you've achieved the goal, right? You see that's a shorter distance than me doing this compared to me doing that. So that's the internal aspect of trying to maintain habits which actually are conducive towards you maintaining your personal energy levels in whatever capacity that you're actually looking at. Right, let's have a look at number 3. So the third aspect of this video is called setting boundaries. So the Oxford definition of boundaries are limits or guidelines that define acceptable and unacceptable behaviors, protecting one's physical, mental and emotional well-being. So these are boundaries in the context of energy, right? But effectively, boundaries like a fence. Boundaries are more of a masculine element. So it's saying like, you know, this is where you start and this is where I finish. And boundaries are structure, patterns, organization, measurements. Boundaries are things that you delineate between two areas, where you divide two areas. You say, right, that's the extent of this thing, that's the extent of that thing. So for example, your fence in your garden, if you have a garden, or the end wall of your flat, if you live in a flat, is the boundary of your habitat, of your built environment space that you've purchased or rented to live in on this planet. And that's a space that you've been allocated or that you pay for, right? That's the extent of the boundary. But then there's also, you know, mental, emotional boundaries. There's physical boundaries. So if someone is going to drag your life down, you don't want to be near them, you just avoid going near them. You know that, right, if I just don't go near this person, I'm not going to have any physical altercations or any kind of arguments because I'm not near them. If they're not near me, how can they affect my energy? You can't touch my energy. If you're nowhere near me, you're not even near. So there's no point, you know. And the same thing might be with mental issues. So let's say you're having an issue with a certain person at work, you know, the best option might be to distance yourself from that space or leave the job. And that's creating a physical space, mental space boundary. And therefore your emotions are also being protected because you're staying away from the environment which is zapping your energy, draining your life force, you know, and not producing anything actionable and not helping you achieve your goals and moving you to a space that you actually want to be in, right? And at the end of the day, it's down to you. You'll realize when people are dying or people get cancer or people get serious life-threatening illnesses, they suddenly start to take very serious stock of the time that they have left. They start measuring the time. They don't want to spend time with people they've never really spoke to before. It's only their close ones, their loved ones, and their family and their friends and all this kind of stuff. They're not out there making new connections, and that's because they don't have the time left. So a lot of boundary setting and, you know, protecting your physical space, you know, that might be through a door. Is the most basic example. Is a door is the most basic example of a boundary. And if your doors are being violated, people are walking into your room, people are walking into your house, you know, the neighbours, everyone off the streets coming into your house, you've got no personal boundary there. You've got to install a boundary to create a space which is personal to you only, right? And you must defend that boundary, that your life at the end of the day, if you can't keep your own space on this planet, how are you going to keep anything else? When you're ready to communicate, you can communicate with other people, but there is an element of, you know, physical borders, boundaries. Look at Europe now. Look at the amount of people coming into America now. Look at and millions, hundreds of millions of people trying to get across the border on ships, on boats, on dinghies, and they don't stop at the first European place they're in. They try to get all the way to England because they know it's probably the best place to be, right? And the point I'm getting at is that, you know, it's another example of lax boundaries. When you don't have boundaries in place, your life can never move forward. Your system will always be degrading because you've got an influx of unwanted external factors affecting your internal situation or system, whatever you've set up. And it's the very most basic concept that, right, if I can't install a boundary, I cannot maintain physical energy, I cannot maintain mental, emotional energy, I can't focus my energy on the life and things that I want from life. So that's, you know, at the end of the day, whatever boundaries you must set, it's important to maintain them because people don't care about your success, they just want to know you've done it. Deep down, no one really cares about whether you succeed or not, they just want to know if you've done it so they can say, I know the person, or can you give me some money or help me or something like that. And, you know, it's very important, very, very important to maintain a physical boundary. And then the physical boundary creates a mental boundary and even emotional boundary. Mental boundary might also take the form of not communicating. So you're not in the same space, but also you don't communicate. Therefore, if you don't communicate, you can't upset one another. You're not affecting each other's emotions. You're completely separate. You know, and that's a better space to be in than to be constantly seesawing, tipping each other up and down for the sake of no money made, no value output, nothing. But if people was to understand these things on a serious level and take stock of them, they would cut out at least 50% of the people in their life that are dragging them down, and they would be able to focus whatever energy they have left on the life that they've got, the time they've got left. Like, you know, we're not here to act as emotional pumps for other people. We're not here to act as batteries for people who aren't working properly. We're not here to act as, you know, batteries for the tax system. You know, that's what it reduces you down to, like a life force, it's a parasite. These are parasites and they're feeding on your energy and they're trying to take from you. And they don't realize the way, you know, you're in an environment, in order for you to maintain homeostasis and to stay alive as a human being or animal or plant or any living creature, you must create more energy than you're consuming. So if your environment is tapping energy on top of you're living a high volume, high output, intense lifestyle at speed, you know you're burning out and you just carry on going. You know, it's only a matter of time where you're going to hit the wall and that'll be it. So it's important, you know, stay on top of these things, understand these concepts and action these things in your life, because it will change the course of your whole life if you can actually focus on it. If you can pay attention, understand what a person's saying, you know, let the thing land, and then, you know, make the changes necessary. It will change the direction of your life. Right, let's have a look. So establishing personal boundaries. So process of creating and communicating personal limits to maintain a healthy balance between self and others. So again, it's the same thing, trying to maintain homeostasis or set a balance between the inside and the outside, whether that's inside yourself and outside the world, inside your country, outside the world, you know, inside your emails, outside the emails, you know, through your phone, whatever it may be. A person must take stock of these things and pay attention to them. You know, some of the practical tips on setting and enforcing boundaries would include, you know, at the end of the day, if you are trying to set a boundary and you know that that's going to benefit you, it's best to communicate to the other person, excuse me, I've got time for you, I would like to help you. I'm always going to be here for you, but I must enforce this boundary so that I may retain my energy and focus it towards what I actually want, rather than me losing energy by communicating with you, or me